What's up, YouTube? Casey here. It's a new week and I'm back with another update on the Roadster project. Check it out. All right, so what you're looking at is a mostly finished 1949 8BA Ford Flathead. Now, I'm going to tell you the story of the rebuild on this engine. It was a little bit of an ordeal, as has been most things with this project. But I think it's going to be a pretty cool mill. And I did a couple of things that were a little different, maybe a little unorthodox. Figured I'd show them off. Cheers, YouTube. You ever use your flathead motor as a drink holder? It's powerful stuff. Anyway, welcome back. It was a busy week. I really got to have 2 full days to get enough done to make a video that's actually interesting for you guys, I feel like. So I decided to think outside the box this week to keep a weekly video happening. And you guys have seen the flathead motor in the end of my videos. If you watch the videos all the way to the end, you probably wondered if it was just a photo of a flathead motor, or if it was my flathead motor, or if it was the motor that was going to power the crazy Casey Roadster. Well, it is. It is all 3 of those things. And this is it. It's a 1949 8BA block. It has a set of EAB heads. It's got an Isky full race cam. Pistons from Aggie are probably the least performance-oriented item in the build, but the rotating assembly is fully balanced. It's got a twin pot Offenhauser manifold with a pair of very nicely rebuilt Holley 94 carburetors, all matched components, extended throttle shafts, properly sized power valves for a dual setup. I've got a Mallory distributor for it. I think that's it. It's mildly ported. It also has, in my mind, a slightly superior valve train. I don't know how the weight of the adjustable lifters really affects performance and revving, but this has the hollow Ford non-adjustable lifters, and valve clearances are set. Basically dot everything in on the lathe, and then it's running lash caps to get a nicer, fatter footprint on that Ford OEM lifter, because they are a little on the thin side. It's got Isky's springs that are matched to the race cam, so it should be good. It should scoot. You know, I mean, what is it going to make? Maybe 150 horsepower. You know, it's not going to light the world on fire, but it's a decent little mill. And I'm really excited to fire it up for the first time. And I'm close. Basically, I have to rebuild the oil pump, and I have to put the water pumps on it, and I have to basically put all the ancillaries to seal everything up. And I got to recheck the timing gear in the back too, because I don't remember what I did with that. This is such a long, drawn out build. So I guess that's what I'm here to talk about this week. So this motor was in a car that I purchased. It was kind of a basket case car. I had a 1930 Model A coupe way back when. It was a Hemi powered car. I got it on the HAMB. I got it for a song. It was kind of funky and weird, and I knocked the ugly off of it, and I made a boatload of money. A little bit cold-blooded. Market was right, it was well timed, and I saw the opportunity and I struck while the iron was hot, as they say. And I tried to do it again. with a 1929 Model A coupe, little flathead powered thing. Should have probably known something about flatheads before I went and bought a flathead powered car. This thing was ugly as all get out. It was like an art car. Anyway, I thought lightning could strike twice, and instead I got struck by lightning. Yeah, I bought this thing. It wasn't running right, and I thought it was just a tuning issue, and I tried every trick in the book to get it to run, and it just wouldn't run. I finally, I don't know why, I convinced myself that it was working good enough to drive it all the way to Shellville to the Pistons Pinups and Pinot show there at the Shellville Airport, which was a killer show. And I got some pictures of it next to a P40 Warhawk. Bitchin'. I hope they bring that one back. I drove it there. It was leaking oil all over the runway. Sorry, Chris. And it barely made it home. In fact, it died on the way home. I got it running again, but it was fouling plugs, burning oil. So I tore it down after that show, and what a mess. What a mess. The block had 14 separate cracks in it. It had one that ran from the front timing cover all the way back through the center main along the pan rail and almost through the rear main. So it could have basically crapped the whole oil pan out of the thing, and I guess the crankshaft with it, if it had gone much longer. So the block itself actually is not from that motor. I got a really clean, rust-free standard bore block from a guy down in Los Angeles. Boarded an 1/8 over, Aggie pistons, like I said, Isky race cam. It's pretty cool, but it took a long way to get there. It was a long road to get there, I guess is what I should say. So I want to talk about that process. You know, normally your motor's bad. Okay, that's a bummer. You know, it's going to be a bill, but you know, you take it to a trusted expert and you get it rebuilt. I didn't know any trusted flathead experts, and I've been messing around with this old stuff long enough to know that you can't just go to a regular production machine shop and expect vintage stuff to get worked on the right way. So you do have to kind of seek out those shops that do good work. My problem is I've always also tried to get it done cheap. And if there's one lesson you learn from this video today, it's don't go into any project where you require the expert skill set of a trained professional wanting it done cheap. It's the biggest lesson you can learn in the automotive hobby. Anybody who's worth their salt, if you ask for it cheap, they're probably going to tell you to take a walk. And that's actually great, because then they're not taking your money. But there's a whole lot of other people who are pretty good who will take your money, and if you tell them you want it cheap, they're just going to do cheap work, and you're going to be left holding the bag, because cheap work doesn't get you anywhere. All right, so where do we leave off? Cheap work doesn't get you anywhere, and lightning never strikes twice in the same place, except for when it does. Anyway, so essentially the moral of my story is I had to rebuild this motor twice. Not completely start to finish. I tore it completely apart to bare block and had to re-clean it like 3 or 4 times. But I had to do most of the machine work to this engine twice. And that's a big bummer, because I spent way more than I would have spent just doing like a full race build. You know, I maybe didn't spend H&H money, but it was, you know, it was close. It was way more than it should have been to have. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a pretty good product still. And, you know, you have to adapt and overcome, too. I've talked about that before. So yeah, that's where we end up. I'm going to put you guys through a slideshow. I'm going to talk over the slideshow and kind of show you the process that I went through to build this motor. The pitfalls that I encountered and the ways that I overcame them. So I hope you enjoy it, and that's all I know.
Here we have the block back from the machine shop with a fresh coat of Ford green paint. And this is measuring the crankshaft to calculate bearing clearances. After file fitting the piston rings, we have the entire rotating assembly laid out ready for installation. And here we have everything completely blown apart again after realizing that the valve clearances are all over the map. And the lifters weren't spinning as the camshaft rotated. That's indicative of another problem. After posting some photos on Ford Barn, I learned that these rotator valve spring retainers are completely unsuitable for performance usage. This is when I also decided to order up an NOS set of Ford lifters after realizing that the lifters had been surface flat on a belt sander. But notice these lifters are also flat. Notice the absence of a swirl pattern on the lifter finish. I had to take these to Dima Elgin, one of the few places I could find that would machine the correct 96-inch radius into the lifter surface. Ford Barn member Bored and Stroked pointed me towards using the Comp Chrome Moly valve spring retainers for a small block Chevy, turning them down on my quote-unquote lathe, my drill press actually, to fit the flathead. Kind of a trick setup actually, much stronger than the factory retainers. So here we have major setback number 3. The crankshaft never felt quite right as I was rotating it through, checking valve clearances. Felt a little bit tight. Keep in mind that this is only the second motor that I've ever attempted to assemble. So I pulled the crank and did a visual inspection of the mains, noticed some scuffing. It was at this point that I decided to take the engine to another machine shop, and we ended up having to line hone the mains. So at this point we decided, why not balance the rotating assembly? Here you can see my homemade balancing jig. And then this is kind of a fun fact. The wrist pins all had such vastly different weights that I could switch the wrist pins between pistons, and I actually balanced out all of my piston and pin assemblies that way. But here's another tip too. The OEM Ford wrist pins are much, much lighter than anything that's available from the aftermarket. So save your wrist pins if they're in good shape. It'll keep a much lighter rotating assembly. So at this point I was truly procrastinating finishing up the build. To be honest, I just didn't have the tools. So I took a trip to Normandy. There's been no other experience in my entire life as surreal as driving through the hedgerows of northern France in a World War II Jeep. And when I returned, I spent a couple months helping a former world record holder go after another land speed record. Fast forward about 2 years, it was time to finish this motor. Here the crank is balanced and reassembled into the short block. And the missing piece of the puzzle, a lathe, the South Bend 10-inch. I got it on Craigslist used for about $1,000, and this is why I needed it. Fit my lash caps to make up for the vast gap in my valve clearances. I had to take about 80 thousandths off the tip of the valves. This was the only way I could see to do it. Checking springs in place, installed height set, valve clearances dialed in. And final install of the Isky race springs and Comp Chrome Moly retainers. This valve train is ready to go into the block. Torquing up the rods to check rod bearing clearances one last time. And then rods and pistons installed in the block for the last time. Rotating the block over, it's starting to look like something. Now for the icing on the cake. In my opinion, the cast finish on these modern Offenhauser intakes looks just way too perfect. So what you're witnessing is about 3 hours of sanding in, and here's 6. And I won't bore you with all the sanding, but here are a couple of Holley 94 carburetors all cleaned up and ready to reassemble. I get pretty anal when it comes to rebuilding carburetors. I like to just have them be perfect. So there's the intake ready to go. And the finished product. What do you know?
All right, so that's it for this week. Thank you to everybody who's watching my videos every week. Gosh, it means a lot. I'm really kind of overwhelmed with all the likes and comments and the number of new subscribers that we've gotten. It's pretty humbling. It's very cool. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that you felt that this video was informative and entertaining. Maybe it gave you some ideas. gosh, you know, any of you guys, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. You know, this channel is so small right now that I can answer every single one of them, and I absolutely will. And if I can help you like figure your way around your own project, I'm glad to do it. You know, I've had a couple of really good mentors in my life. They've pretty much all passed away, which is a total bummer. But if you're a young person in this hobby and you need a mentor, you know, it's be my pleasure to help out any of you in any capacity that I can. Because, you know, we need young people getting into this hobby. I'm getting to be old. I'm 41, going on 42. I'm young compared to the old guys, but I'm old compared to the young guys. And, yeah, it's real. So again, thank you for watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. Comment to let me know what you want to see more of in the future. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I'm trying to build this thing up, and I will keep the content coming if you guys keep subscribing. So thanks again so much. Hope you have a great night, and talk to you soon. Cheers. I'm out of here.